If you're starting a survival world or want to automate yours, this video is for you. Obviously, every Minecraft world and every player have different needs, but I'm going to list the farms that I think cover the needs of most regular players. At the same time, I'll be ranking the farms in a tier list. Don't take this too seriously, okay? But the criteria will be a mix between how useful and how easy they are to make. Let's get started. Iron farm. Essential in Minecraft. Iron is needed for pistons, hoppers, doors, lamps, rails, minecarts, and more. That's why almost every Minecraft world needs an iron farm, unless you spend much of your time mining. It works simply. 3 villagers see a mob, get scared, and spawn an iron golem for protection. You move or kill the golem to get ingots. This farm is built on the ground because, while it's very useful, it involves villagers who are a hassle. Mob farm. Some of its items are more useful than others, but what's undeniable is that when you have elytra, you're going to use mini rockets. Then you'll positively need the mob farm for gunpowder. This design uses platforms where mobs spawn, and with water very cleverly activated by redstone, they're dropped over 23 blocks being killed. Building it takes time since you need many blocks, but I consider it an undeniable S tier. In an hour of building or less, you can get bones, gunpowder, string, and more for the rest of your game. Also, remember, you need to stand here for the farm to work, so the game has no other choice. And speaking of rockets, you need to use paper to craft them. And what could be better than a sugarcane farm, so you never run out? There are 2 main types of sugarcane farms. The simplest uses an observer and a piston, and though it has some loss, it's very easy to build. If you want 0 loss, it gets more complicated. This farm is a bit tedious to build because it uses the most optimized sugarcane placement for higher yields. At the 3rd level, a flying machine will be manually activated to break the 2nd layer. And the ground is full of minecarts with hoppers that will collect everything, so you have it all in one chest without having to move from the spot, of course. For me, this farm belongs in B, since it's only useful for rockets and not much else. And the materials, depending on what stage of the game you're in, can end up being a bit expensive. Fun fact, you can use this same design for the bamboo farm. In fact, you can automate it with the crafter so it gives you wood. This is really useful to have crafting wood without actually using a wood farm. I mean, how can you not love the crafter? It's the best block they've released in years. I don't know if I would exactly call this a farm, but it's pretty close. And you need it. A villager, farmer, breeder will make things much easier for you. In modern Minecraft, villagers are highly necessary if you want to get enchantments quickly, as well as things like food, armor, tools, and more. Having a steady flow of villagers is very helpful. This works in a very simple way. 2 villagers who have extra food and beds will breed with each other every few minutes. By having a farmer villager, they'll always have enough food. I rank this in tier A since anything using villagers can't be tier S. Now, let's discuss the gold farm. This farm is very good in an advanced game for several things. Experience and gold. Nevertheless, I must say that since 1.21.5, it no longer works for experience, because they fixed it. Supposedly, it was a bug that took them 10 years to fix. So now, well, we've been using it for 10 years, and, well, it doesn't work anymore. But you still get gold. Gold farms have various designs, but most use magma cube spawning platforms. The zombie pigmen go straight for turtle eggs and fall, die from the fall, and give you all the gold nuggets. The farms I mentioned work by hitting them to make them angry, which causes them to drop experience. Starting in version 1.21.5, they stopped doing that, so it's best to use the classic design where they just fall. I'd rate this farm as tier B since it needs many materials. Players need gold in their survival, but for players who want to go further, I think it's essential. Especially if you build the bartering farm along with this one, which is used to trade all that gold with piglins. The gold, which has previously been converted into ingots, is transported to the piglins so they can trade with it. All materials will be sent to a storage system organized by item. This farm makes much more use of the gold one, and in fact I think combining them is necessary, since it gives you quartz and obsidian. Besides materials like blackstone and gravel, we recently built a farm like this in my Rubik-style survival series. And honestly, I think it's better than the gold one because of the number of possibilities it gives you with the trades. But it's true that it's very tedious to get the piglins into the hole, because first you have to force them to spawn, and then you have to move them. It was complicated for me, so we'll keep it in tier B. Remember that in order to be tier S, it has to be either very, very, very useful to have, or very, very, very simple, or both combined. Now let's talk about the witch farm, one of Minecraft's most legendary. It uses a moving floor to make witches fall. But does it allow their spawning? Well, there's also a variation now where they're led toward a villager by pillagers with the Johnny tag. Like we did in my survival, the witches die from falling. Very simple at first glance. Maximizing it is best done by making a perimeter around the farm down to the lowest layer, but this isn't necessary since there are many alternatives. I always make them with a perimeter, but I don't know, male urge to dig big holes. It's like when you go to the beach and dig a hole in the sand. Same thing, but in Minecraft. This farm, being a simple farm to make, I'll rank it tier A since it provides unlimited glowstone and redstone, which are crucial. And obviously, it's very complex to make if you build a perimeter, but like I said, there are many ways to make it without a perimeter. Wood farms are actually very complicated to make. They have a platform to plant saplings, which are sprayed with bone dust to speed up their growth. And once it has grown, the tree will be moved by pistons to a trinitrotoluene explosion chamber, where the wood will be blown up and collected automatically. You'll keep planting endlessly, as the saplings are quickly broken by the pistons, so they'll never run out in your hand. Provided that the farm is well built, of course. Sure, it's an unnecessary, according to some people. You can just chop trees for wood, but for more experienced players, it's very useful because it's away from keyboard. That is, you don't need to be in front of the screen. Just by holding down the right click, it works. That's why I'm going to put it in a tier C. Because honestly, these farms are very difficult to build, and I don't see them as that essential. If you're a casual player without major projects in your world, I wouldn't recommend this. As we've said, we now have bamboo farms that can make wooden planks with the crafter. So if you don't need wood for building, if you need it for crafting, bamboo wood is 1,000 times better. I tell you from the heart, don't make a wood farm, make a bamboo farm. If you need to craft pistons or things like that, don't worry if they're bamboo colored, it's 1,000 times more convenient. Even so, the technology behind all these farms is obviously incredible and they're very nice to look at, but I don't recommend making them. Let's move on to another fuel, kelp. Few people use it, but it's easily renewable and very helpful in new games. It's like the automatic sugar cane farm. When the observer detects full growth, it triggers the piston to break the surplus, allowing it to keep growing. In this case, it's taller, and when the kelp breaks, it goes into a furnace. At first, you'll have to burn it manually to get blocks. This is what makes it a bit more complicated. And later, you'll be able to automate it with the crafter to have kelp burning via the kelp block, having an extra chest to store the leftovers as fuel for you. Obviously, this is a closed circuit, so you don't need to add fuel. For a new game, I find this farm very useful, so I'll rank it in tier B. There are also several alternatives. Now we'll take a big leap to the root farm. Until recently, its design remained the same, but the switch to ominous bottles drastically changed farms. First, you have to take 4 villagers to the ocean. Good luck if you do it. And build a very tall platform where the raid mobs will spawn in a chamber. Ravagers are burned by the height, and Vexes won't spawn from evokers. The remaining mobs will drop into an area and be killed by TNT and an explosive firework rocket. The rocket activates with a clever system. While away from keyboard, you right-click a vase to store your looting 3 sword and receive an ominous bottle. While you drink it, you'll get a rocket sent directly to the mob's execution spot. Once the rocket launches, you'll get your looting 3 sword back to maximize your loot from those mobs you killed with the TNT and the rocket, because the game detects that you have the sword in your hand, so it applies the looting effect. This farm provides totems, essential for hardcore players. If you aren't playing hardcore, you'll get unlimited emeralds, so it's still useful. As the farm uses villagers, it's not tier S, but a solid tier A. It's tedious to build, but it provides experience and key resources, as well as redstone from the witches. Moving on to water, we have guardian farms, which are some of the simplest out there, depending on who you ask, of course. Place soul sand on each pyramid block of the ocean monument to make guardians float to the water's surface. Currents will push them to a central area where they'll die on campfires. It's very easy to make and lets you build with prismarine, so it's tier A. Simple and great for the whole family. But I don't give it an S since it's not strictly necessary. If you dislike or won't use these materials, they're not tier S. Lastly, the drowned farm is good for copper and nautilus shells, which can be hard to find, and most importantly, tridents. You really only need 2, but going out to look for them is tedious and you end up exhausted from not getting one. This farm is built over rivers, since that's where drowned people spawn most often. You create a large water platform with bottom currents that carry the drowned to the execution area, where the player with looting 3 will kill the drowned to get their items. For me, this farm is a bit unnecessary. If you want a trident, search for it instead of buying one, since it's more expensive. Still, it depends on your playstyle. It can be very useful. And, above all, if you need a large amount of copper, which most of you won't, but in case you do, this farm is very necessary. All the same, personally, I'll put it in tier D because, hey, we have to put some of these in the lowest tier. Now let's move on to the slime farm. It's great for redstone users. Otherwise, just visit a swamp at night instead. You'll also find slimes there. There are 3 typical farms of this type, 2 of which are quite new. The classic method is to find a slime chunk where slimes can spawn. Mine everything and build spawning platforms where golems fall and die on magma blocks. The usual. This has been done for many, many years. Now there are 2 I already explored in my survival. The first one I'm telling you about needs to be done in a swamp. And it uses this mechanic where mobs don't spawn when there's at least 1 light. This is something new. Light intensity ranges from 0 to 15. 0 means completely dark, and 1 means a small amount of light. Well, slimes can spawn below light level 7, but mobs can't do it until it's 0. So, if you get a middle point between 1 and 7, you'll get slimes and no other mobs will spawn. However, this relies on swamp spawns and the moon. More of them spawn during a full moon, and none spawn if the moon is fully covered. The other design I'm using in my survival is Yuzin's farms. Let me explain. Yuzin's potions make it so that when a mob or entity dies, it generates 2 medium slimes. If you get a bunch of mobs and make them die, if they have the Yuzin effect, they'll generate a lot of slimes for you. You just kill them with looting and you get a ton of experience and a ton of slime. But be careful, because a lot of slimes can be very dangerous if they escape. And if you don't have a good computer, they're very dangerous for your PC's performance. And because this farm is so easy to make, well, in its versions and all its versions, because in some it's automatic and produces a lot. And even if you don't need it often, you can make it just to have it running from time to time. I'm going to put it in tier A. I'm a bit biased here, obviously. I use slime blocks often and enjoy redstone. So it's tier A for me, though others may rank it differently. Like I told you at the beginning, don't take this tier too seriously, okay? Along with slime blocks, we have honey, which is useful for redstone and copper. That's why this farm is so useful. This farm has 2 uses, getting honey and getting honeycombs. You can adjust what you collect by loading the dispenser with bottles or shears. And the farm is very simple. It senses when the beehive is ready, triggers the dispenser, and sends the item to a hopper, which moves it to a chest. And the beehives get filled thanks to the bees' pollination. Let's give them credit. This farm is easy, just find the beehives. The rest is simple. So we place a farm back in tier S, and with the animals we go to the wool farm. Very easy to make and completely automatic. You put a sheep in a 1x1 space with a grass block and a dispenser of shears, so it can regrow and be sheared. The observer notices the grass has become dirt and activates the dispenser. And the wool is moved with a minecart hopper that's enclosed in the grass block where the sheep eats. If the sheep has a different color, will the wool stay? It's a different color, so colored wool for everyone. It's really easy to make, and you can progress in your world while you get wool, although it's not an essential resource that you can't get in a simpler way. That's why I put it in a B tier. The cow farm is pretty good to start with. I remember in permadeath we called it the cowlergic permutator. It's just a hole with 24 cows, the max per block, and when fed, they die from suffocation. A hopper moves everything to a chest, letting you collect lots of meat and leather at once. This farm is absolutely minimal. It's semi-automatic since you need wheat, so it's not entirely good and you'd have to cook the meat separately. We'll leave it in tier C, but I wanted to mention it because it's very, very useful for the first days in the world. Keep in mind that as you progress, there are many better ways to get food. Golden carrots are most commonly traded with villagers. One villager exchanges them for emeralds, which is very helpful if you have a gold farm, like the one I built in survival. And you have the carrot crop farm. Let's make the golden carrots, which are by far the best food. And let's talk about a farm I just mentioned, which is the crop farm. You place several modules where the villagers collect the crops and pass them to another villager who is trapped to simulate that they're going to store them. What they don't know is that when they have the crops, these will be collected by minecart hoppers and sent to the storage system. You can build unlimited modules, but each one needs a villager, plus one trapped in the center. That is up to 5 villagers per floor. I'm going to put it in tier A. It's useful for having carrot, beetroot, bread, and potato crops, but you need villagers, and I'm not going to repeat what I think about them anymore. Now let's move on to the Enderman farm, a farm that has a lot of variations and became very viral at the time because it was absolutely essential. When enchantments were harder or more necessary and we lacked villagers, gaining the experience was much more complicated. This farm was essential if you wanted enchantments. You don't see it much now because it's less useful. With Elytra, ender pearls aren't needed, and we have many more ways to get experience, and also many more ways to get books by way of the villagers. So it's a bit forgotten, but is it worth mentioning just for nostalgia? This farm consists of creating a platform in the void and placing an endermite in a minecart that the enderman can't reach. They fall through some trapdoors and we can kill them, getting lots of ender pearls and experience. As I mentioned, there are better ways to gain experience, and ender pearls aren't as important now. They usually pile up since the chests get filled quickly. So we're going to put it in tier B. I can't put it any lower because honestly, this one in particular is super easy to make. When there were no endermites, they were harder, but anyway, I'll stop rambling and telling old stories now. To give you a very simple example of what an easy experience points farm would be, we have the Silverfish experience points farm. It's very recent. It was discovered not long ago. It doesn't take any time to build, and it gives a ton of experience. I have a short that explains it in detail, but in few words. Get an ally, breed it repeatedly, and use the Inferno potion on them. This causes them to spawn many silverfish when drowning. Allies regenerate faster than they drown. They'll take damage but won't die. The silverfish they generate appear when you kill them. They'll give you a lot of experience in a very short time. I know it's new and most of you don't know it, but for me it's tier S and easy to make. If you have allies, obviously you have to find an outpost or something like that, an amethyst to feed them, but I think it's so simple and gives you so much experience, it's tier S. There are many more farms than I mentioned, but I focused on the most useful ones. Ideal for casual players or those starting a world. So if you liked it, subscribe so you don't miss more videos, and give it a like if you want to see more videos about farms. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Goodbye.